Bloody Marys. Return, the mirror that should never be looked into. Everything is normal. I never thought moving into an old house in a quiet suburb could change my life so much. The kind of place where every morning sounds like a whisper, the soft rustling of leaves, distant birdsong neighbors tending their gardens with polite nods. A place so familiar it almost felt like home before I even unpacked my bags. It wasn't a new house by any means. Built in the late 1920s, the paint was peeling here and there. The wooden floorboards creaked underfoot, and the windows reflected the sun with a slight tint, giving everything a faint amber glow. I liked that warmth. I liked the feeling of history. There was something comforting about living where others had lived long before me. I had just started a new job nearby and was eager to settle in. The rent was cheap and the landlord seemed friendly enough, though oddly vague about the house's past. He said the previous tenant had left in a hurry, but that was all. I didn't pry. The house was mine now. The first few nights were uneventful, just the usual settling noises of an old home. The wind tapping on the windows, a floorboard, shifting the faint hum of distant traffic. I fell asleep easily. That was when I first noticed the mirrors. They were everywhere, on the walls above the dresser, inside the closets, even one in the hallway that I swear had never been there when I first moved in. Each mirror was framed in ornate wood, slightly dusty like forgotten relics from a different era. But what struck me was not their quantity but their reflections. There was something about the way these mirrors caught the light. Sometimes just out of the corner of my eye, I'd see a flicker, a shadow, a face that wasn't quite mine. I told myself it was just a trick of the light, a tired mind playing games. One evening, while brushing my teeth, I caught a glimpse of a figure behind me in the hallway mirror. I spun around, nothing. The hallway was empty, the only sound my own breathing. I shrugged it off. Maybe the shadows from the old trees outside were casting shapes I mistook for something else. I was alone after all. But the mirrors seemed different, almost alive. A few days later, I found myself standing in front of the largest mirror in the house, the one in the living room. It was tall from floor to ceiling, with a thick gilded frame. I stared at my reflection, noticing small things, how the light caught the edges of my eyes, the faint lines around my mouth I hadn't noticed before. I was tired, the stress of moving, of starting over. Then the reflection blinked. Not me. I froze, my heart pounding. The face in the mirror smiled slow, crooked, almost cruel. But when I blinked, it was gone. Just my own tired face staring back. I backed away slowly, telling myself it was my imagination, maybe a trick of exhaustion. Still, the house felt colder after that, the shadows deeper, the quiet heavier. I began to hear whispers, Not loud enough to understand, just soft, barely there, like someone breathing right behind the glass. At first, I thought the old pipes were making noise or the wind sneaking through cracks. But then I started hearing footsteps. Every night, just after midnight, I'd hear footsteps pacing through the hallway, slow and deliberate. I'd get up, check every room. Empty. Not even the cat was around. It was as if the house itself was waking, breathing through the mirrors. I started avoiding them, turning my back on every reflective surface. It wasn't normal, but I told myself old houses were weird. I was just tired. One afternoon, rummaging through the attic, I found a small dusty box. Inside were old photographs and a diary. The diary belonged to a woman named Margaret, the previous tenant. Her writing was elegant, flowing, but the entries grew darker as they went on. She wrote about the mirror show they whispered to her, how she tried not to look but couldn't resist, about a game she played as a child, a ritual she called Bloody Mary. At first I laughed. The old urban legend about chanting her name 3 times in front of a mirror, summoning a ghost who would appear and haunt you, childhood nonsense. But Margaret's final entry chilled me. She's not the same anymore. She watches through every reflection. The mirrors are doors, and I think she's coming for me. I slammed the diary shut. I wanted to believe it was just superstition, a story a lonely woman told herself to explain strange noises. But something inside me whispered, what if it was real? That night, the footsteps were louder, closer. I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake watching the living room mirror, and then I saw her. Not a flicker, not a shadow. A woman with dark hair, eyes black as voids, standing just beyond the glass, her lips moving in a silent chant. Her face was twisted with something ancient, something hungry. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I looked away, then back. She was gone. But the reflection wasn't mine anymore. And I knew somehow that Bloody Mary had returned. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Stress, exhaustion, those were the usual culprits for seeing things that weren't there. But the feeling that something wasn't right clung to me like a shadow I couldn't shake. It started with small things, the kind of details that don't make sense but are impossible to ignore. Every night at exactly 3 a.m., I heard a knock on the front door. Not a soft tap, but a deliberate knock, slow, patient, impossible to mistake for anything else. I'd lie there, heart pounding, eyes wide, staring into the darkness beyond my bedroom window. I would muster the courage to look through the peephole. Nothing. No one was outside. Sometimes I'd open the door a crack. Still nothing. The street was empty, the houses dark and silent. No footprints in the dew-covered grass. No sound, but the soft rustling of the wind. The knocking stopped after a week, but the silence that followed was worse. It was like the house was holding its breath. Then I found something that sent chills down my spine. While cleaning the attic, I stumbled on an old wooden chest hidden beneath a tarp. Inside, tucked between yellowed papers and forgotten trinkets, was a diary. Not Margaret's, the handwriting was different, messy, and frantic. The pages were filled with scribbled notes, drawings of eyes, mirrors, and repeated warnings. Do not look. Do not answer. She waits. The last page had something even more unsettling. My own name scrawled in shaky letters beneath the phrase, "She's watching. She waits in every glass." I slammed the diary shut. My fingers trembled. Who had written this? And how did they know me? That same night, I started noticing things moving on their own. A photo frame on the mantel was crooked one morning, though I had set it straight the night before. A drawer in the kitchen was open, even though I was sure I had closed it. My keys vanished from the hallway table, only to reappear hours later on the bathroom sink. I felt eyes on me constantly, a prickling sensation creeping up my neck whenever I passed a mirror. One evening, I caught myself talking to the reflection in the bathroom mirror. "Who are you?" I whispered, half joking. For a moment, the reflection didn't answer. Then, just before I turned away, I saw a smile that didn't belong to me, small, cruel, and knowing. I blinked. The reflection was mine again, but the smile lingered in my mind. Sleep became a fragile thing. I started recording the sounds in the house at night, hoping to catch what I was hearing. Footsteps, whispers, soft scratching noises like nails on glass. One recording ended abruptly at 3:00 a.m., the time of the knocking. I didn't want to believe the house was haunted, or worse, that something was hunting me. But the more I ignored the signs, the stronger they became. Then the memories began to blur. Some days I couldn't remember whether I had looked into the mirrors or avoided them. Sometimes reflections seemed to delay a second, like the image was watching me back with a strange hesitation. My friends noticed I was distracted, tired. I brushed it off. But the strangest thing was, when I tried to share my fears about the mirrors with someone else, my phone showed a message from an unknown number. "She's closer than you think. Don't look. Don't speak." No reply to my questions, just silence. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I noticed a figure standing behind me in the hallway mirror. But this time it wasn't the dark-haired woman with hollow eyes. It was me, or a version of me. My reflection smiled, but there was no warmth in it. It was cold, distant, a perfect imitation. I turned away quickly. The door creaked shut behind me, though I hadn't moved. Something inside whispered that I was no longer alone in my own skin. I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, that I needed rest. But when I looked back at the mirror, the figure was gone. The knocking had returned too, sometimes on doors, sometimes on windows, always at 3 a.m. And with it came a dread I could no longer ignore. Something was waiting in the reflections, something that didn't just want to be seen, it wanted to come through. The nights grew colder not just in temperature, but in feeling. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones, wraps around your heart, and doesn't let go. I started noticing patterns, little rules the house seemed to follow, almost like the spirit behind the mirrors was teaching me how to survive, or maybe testing me. The first rule became clear one evening when I sat on the bottom bunk in my new bed, the one I'd set up in the spare room. I heard it almost immediately, soft crying, the kind of quiet sobbing that rips at your soul. I looked up. No one was there, but the top bunk had something, a shadow maybe, or a shape shifting in the dim light. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. No roommate, no one but me. The crying went on every time I slept on the bottom bunk. I tried switching places, sleeping on the top bunk myself. The crying stopped, but that was just the beginning. One afternoon, I decided to dig deeper into the house's history. Old newspaper articles, property records, and town archives revealed something chilling. This house was once a home to a family, shattered by tragedy. A child, a little girl, was kept locked away in a small dark room for 7 years. No one knew why. The mother had been institutionalized shortly after the child's disappearance. Neighbors spoke in hushed tones about screams in the night, strange lights, and mirrors covered in blood. It was a story nobody wanted to talk about, but it explained a lot, especially the mirrors. They weren't just mirrors, they were portals, doors, windows into something else, something angry, something that fed on fear. And the name Bloody Mary wasn't just a game, it was a warning. I started noticing more rules. Never look into a mirror after 2 a.m. Never say her name aloud 3 times. Never answer the knock at 3 a.m. Each time I broke a rule, the presence grew stronger. Reflections shifted, no longer just images, but glimpses of something darker. Once I lied about leaving the house that day. When I looked into the mirror later, her face appeared silent, accusing. Every time I lied, she appeared. Every time I looked away, I felt her watching. I tried covering mirrors with blankets, turning them to face the wall. But reflections found a way. They appeared in windows, spoons, even my phone screen. One night I woke to see a message scrawled across the bathroom mirror in fogged up condensation: "Don't lie, don't sleep." I didn't understand it at first. Then the bottom bunk crying began again, and I knew I wasn't safe. She was hunting through reflections, slipping through glass and shadows, and I was the prey. I knew the rules, But that night, I broke them all. The knocking at 3 a.m. was relentless, pounding through the walls like a warning drum. I sat before the largest mirror, the gilded one in the living room, the one that had always felt like a gateway. I whispered her name 3 times. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. The air turned icy. The reflection rippled like disturbed water. Her face emerged, not the cruel smirk from before, but something far worse. Hollow eyes full of rage. Her hands pressed against the glass fingertips, clawing, reaching. I tried to look away, but my eyes were glued. Then she stepped out, not from behind the mirror, but from inside it, crawling toward me, slow and unnatural. I stumbled back, heart racing, breath short. The mirror cracked, spiderweb fractures, spreading as if the glass was breaking between our worlds. I ran to the hallway mirror to escape, only to find myself already reflected, except my reflection didn't move. She was smiling, an evil, victorious smile. I reached for my phone to call for help, but the screen showed only darkness. Then I heard Ita's soft, dragging sound. Turning my head slowly, I saw the doll that had been sitting on my bedside table every morning was no longer still. It was crawling across the floor toward me, its glassy eyes reflecting the dim light. Frozen, I watched as it stopped just inches from my feet. The room went silent. Then a whisper so close I could feel it brush my ear. "Don't sleep when I'm awake." I flicked on the flashlight app on my phone, hoping to shatter the illusion. The beam landed on the ceiling. Carved deep into the plaster were the words, "Don't sleep when I'm awake." Panic rose like a tidal wave. I realized there was no escape. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive, and I was trapped inside its reflections. Every mirror was a door, every glass a window, and Bloody Mary was no longer just a legend. She was real, and now she was coming for me through every mirror I dared to look into. If you ever find yourself alone, staring into a mirror late at night, remember this story. Because sometimes the stories we think are just games are warnings. And some mirrors are better left unlooked into.